Welcome, everybody, to the CFL's Grey Cup postgame show, brought to you by MyBookie.ag, where my co-host, Oz Davis, I know, won a little bit of money today. How you doing, Oz?
I'm okay. I'm just sitting back after that amazing Grey Cup game. But I like the way you've been pimping me on the shows lately and my awesome success in my bookie, Mike. It's not that awesome, but I am up for the year.
I know, but they're a sponsor, so we got to make it sound good. I actually won. Hey, I won $61 on the NFL today and a big $26 parlay, taking Toronto in the points and the under.
That's a good bet. Good bet. Good win.
So, all right. Also, we've got another co-host here, as always, Brian Schmidt. How you doing, Schmitty?
It was a great Grey Cup game. I can't say a whole lot about the other game I'm watching right now, but well, if you hear me cheering at any point through this show, you'll know that something good has happened. If you hear me say "oh crap," you'll know something bad has happened. So.
All right, nobody cares about American football. And Brian, truthfully, if you watch the Grey Cup and you're watching the Steelers and the Packers, which game's better?
Oh, the Grey Cup game was by far the best football game of the day, and honestly, as we've said before, CFL right now is the caliber of plays is way better than the NFL right now.
All right, let's start off. We're going to break down the first half of the game. I actually took some notes. The weather was bad, Oz, and I think the weather really it helped Calgary in the first half because I think Jerome Messham's a straight-ahead runner. Wilder is more of a slasher, and I think it really affected the way he ran in the first half.
Yeah. They pointed that out. Okay, so here you've got a guy who's a Canadian native who played ball in Canada through most of his life versus the guy from Florida. You know, I mean, who do you think is going to be more well-equipped to play in this game? And it was interesting because, you know, Messam was exactly what they wanted through the first half and in that first drive of the third quarter. I mean, just plow through, score the touchdowns, get those hard-earned yards, right? Because that was the only thing that was working reliably for Calgary or for Toronto, for either team in the first half. So I like that in the first half. I wonder what happened in the second.
Well, we'll get to that, but I just said we're going to talk about the first half first. And sure. The thing that really surprised me, Brian, is Calgary dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, but we're only up 17-8 at the half. That had to worry, you know, Calgary going into the locker room. You had the 100-yard touchdown pass to DeVere Posey. It seemed like the game was being dominated by Calgary, but they couldn't put it away.
Yeah, if you watched it and you really weren't looking at the score, you really thought it was a lot higher. You know, you started thinking 24-8, that kind of deal, but they hung around. Toronto hung around, and that 17-8 score, you went to the half really thinking, you know, this has some opportunities in the second half, and really exactly what we saw.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when it went to halftime, Oz, I really thought the game was over because it looked like Toronto couldn't do anything. And it looked a lot like what we talked about in the pregame show last night, that it would be close for a half and then Calgary would pull away.
Yeah, exactly. That was the thing, is you were expecting Calgary, because this has been their strength, to come out of the half, you know, with the game plan, make the adjustments, and et cetera. And on the other hand, it was Toronto. Toronto used the opportunity in the change in weather right there in the third quarter to put together the only really, you know, typical looking drive of the day, that 10-play, like 80-yarder, I believe, to start off the third quarter. It was bam, bam, bam. Here's Ricky Ray finding S.J. Green. Bam, bam, bam. Touchdown. Right? That's the way it was this whole game was supposed to look. And then it started snowing again.
Yeah, but so, I don't think it was so much that. I think, and they talked about it coming out of halftime, Brian, was the Argonauts, almost every one of them to a man, changed the cleats they were wearing.
Mm.
Yeah, they changed their cleats. You know, another game, another CFL game where the winner of the Grey Cup may be because of the equipment guy and changing cleats. I mean, we've seen that in the past. Sometimes that's the biggest key. Obviously having that, equipment guys that can change, get you into the right cleats, get you what you need. Sometimes that could be the difference from, what we saw in the first half and what we saw in the second half.
Yeah, and I think one of the games that most people think of, Oz, included your Montreal Alouettes in 1977.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Joe and I watched that game for the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast in the offseason as one of our visits to the past Grey Cups. Yeah. The equipment makes a difference, and that was nice because that kind of harkens back. You don't hear so much about that nowadays. We think that there's level playing fields in the NFL as far as this kind of stuff is concerned. And it was just, that's like old school football. That's football. That beyond that's Canadian football. That's just football. It's great.
And you talked about the first drive, Oz, and I'll pose this towards Brian. The thing that stuck out to me wasn't so much even DeBeer Posey, who made some great plays. It was Declan Cross. I mean, they brought him out. They played him at tight end. They played him at fullback on the drive. He was catching balls. He was picking up the blitz. And I think Cross is one of the unsung heroes of this game.
Oh, absolutely. Especially the one that you just kind of mentioned, the pickup on the blitz. People don't realize how important that is. You see guys, they make runs, they make catches. You'll have people talk about that all the time. But what you don't have people talk about is when these guys are picking up blitzes, and that right there was a huge key. Picking up the blitz is one of the unsung things that people don't talk about, and it's probably one of the most important, maybe even more important than the catches you make or the runs you make.
Yeah, and also on the Wilder TD run, the lead block was Declan Cross. Then they get the 2-point conversion at 17-16, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, hey, we got a game. They've got a shot, Oz.
Yeah, and then Calgary puts another one in, and then they almost get another one.
Yeah.
So it was wild because it was edge-of-the-seat kind of stuff, but the advantage always seemed to be Calgary's. I mean, look, if you look at this, if you look at this game in total, it's 2 huge plays by Toronto plus 1 solid drive to kick off the second half. That's the game for Toronto. It was wild because it turned on that one play. It turned on the one fumble.
Yeah, the one fumble. I mean, Cassius Vaughn ties the game on a 109-yard fumble return. And the thing there, I think it was Kamir Jordan, fumbled the ball. And Kamir Jordan, I mean, when you get down to it, he had to drop on the ball from Mitchell at the end of the game. Then he makes a great diving catch. But this has got to haunt him. This game was over. This reminded me, Brian.
Yeah.
This reminded me, Brian, of the Super Bowl a couple of years ago with the Patriots and the Seahawks, where you think it's a done deal, and then all of a sudden something crazy happens, and the game just completely changes in the matter of a heartbeat.
Right, and how many times have we seen it through the history of, football, the history of, Grey Cups, Super Bowls, playoff games, where one team seemingly dominates, and then they make a mistake, and then all of a sudden, it's like throwing a snowball down the mountain. I mean, that thing just builds and builds and builds, and you can't stop it, and that's exactly what we saw again. I mean, it just took one mistake, and all of a sudden, instead of us sitting here talking about, as we did last night, Calgary, the Grey Cup, win this game, and all of a sudden we were sitting here talking about Toronto, and definitely an upset. That sometimes all it takes is one play. So all it takes is one play to change everything.
Yeah, and I was so close to picking that, and you guys changed my mind last night. Screwed me up.
But you guys are coaches, okay? And we talk about this all the time. That the Stampede. I don't think we'll be talking about it anymore so much. But the Stampeders are the CFL equivalent of the New England Patriots. Well, they've just gone and lost to the Giants now 2 straight years in the CFL Super Bowl, the Grey Cup. I mean, why, and what is this going to do to this team? They can't possibly be as focused next year as they were this year, can they?
Well,
absolutely they can.
Yeah, the question is this, O'Brien. Were they as focused this year? Or were they just not quite as good a team this year?
An interesting question. I mean, I think it could be a little bit of A and a little bit of B. Is it a talented team? No doubt. Are they as talented as what maybe they were, what maybe people thought on paper? I don't know. But the focus part of it, I don't know. Because there were times through the regular season that you kind of questioned their focus. They were winning games that they should have been winning a lot easier than they were. But, that's also part of it where a team like Calgary has a target on their back. Everybody that plays Calgary wants to be Calgary because they are certainly considered the class of the league. So you're going to have a little bit of that too. Teams get up to play teams like Calgary, and certainly Toronto, in a game like this, I mean, they were up to play. They were up to play this game. There's no doubt about it. And I think, we saw that. I mean, they hung around, then they get the fumble, and now here we go. And sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, but let's face it, Brian. This is the Grey Cup. It doesn't matter if you're Calgary or not. The other team's going to be up and ready to play. And
right.
My big question here.
You also know.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, but you also know that there's a difference between being up as you normally would, and there's also a difference when you're looking at a team that everybody's talking about, everybody's saying, yeah, they're going to win, they're it. It adds a little bit extra to it. It always does. We as just normal human beings, if somebody throws in your face enough that this such and such team, this such and such person is that good, it adds extra motivation.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to bring up was the challenge rule that was changed to 3-1. I think it affected this game. What do you think, Oz, about the change from 3-1? Do you like it or not like it?
Okay. I liked it wholeheartedly until this game, actually, because I could see kind of the failings for it. Because they, let's see, which side? One side used it in the first quarter, and I was like, okay, well, that takes it out of the game. And then by the fourth quarter, we were all of a sudden kind of sort of getting into this trap of pass interference calls and illegal contact with the receiver calls that might have been avoided had all these challenges been in play. However, look, the truth is this. In the first 5-6 weeks of this season, when we still had the old 3-challenge rule in place, these games were getting bogged down, and Twitter was just getting flooded with, oh my God, the CFL sucks, the referees suck, this is bullshit. This pacing is terrible. And it was. And as soon as they changed that rule, the commissioner changed this rule mid-season, bam, all the comments stopped. The pace of the game improved. That's it. Now, in this game, if you've got to eat a couple of bad referee calls, well, again, let's go back to kill the referees and change the referee system and get better people. But let's not go back to the 3-challenge rule. It's too much.
I agree, too. I think you can have 2 or 3 challenges, but make it on change of possession, something like that.
Ooh. No, that's not bad.
Well, I mean, that's what the NFL does. In the NFL, you can't challenge whether something's a pass interference or not.
Yeah.
It's considered a judgment call by the referee. So I think the big problem here is just bad refereeing because S.J. Green got interfered with, at least in illegal contact around the 5-minute mark with the game on the line, and the call was completely blown. And you can't tell me those officials didn't see him get hit early. I mean, it was obvious. It was blatant.
It was almost like that was the call that they make, expecting it to get challenged.
Yeah.
But then there wasn't any challenges left, so the referee, and you could see it, the referee was listening to them complaining, and then he just kind of shrugged and pulled up his ski mask and went back onto the field. I mean, it was like, that's to me what it was. It was, okay, challenge it then. Oh, you can't? Sorry.
All right, so
that's just, you can't have it.
So we get back to the game. James Wilder in the second half, they got him more involved in the game. The thing that really made me wonder what was going on, Brian, was in the first half where they didn't throw the ball to him out of the backfield. But in the second half they did. He came out with the different shoes. He could cut a little bit. He was a little bit more successful. In the fourth quarter, he made a nice catch out of the backfield. I think that they changed the way they used him in the second half, which really improved their offensive flow.
Yeah, they definitely tried to get him more involved. In my opinion, obviously they won the game, so I mean it doesn't matter to an extent. But in my opinion, I don't know that they got him involved enough. I mean, he only had 9 carries and 2 catches. I mean, it wasn't like they really involved him enough. They did, most of that was in the second half, and I think some of the first half was more because of the cleats and the footing. But still, I mean, that was the one thing that probably jumped out at me the most is I didn't feel like they really got him involved near as much as I would have thought they would have.
All right, and the other thing that I really thought was a huge mistake by Coach Trestman with Toronto was the fact that with 49 seconds remaining, up only 3 points, Brian, they squib kicked the ball, and they ended up giving the ball back to him at the 40-yard line.
Yeah, I'm outdoor football, especially. I'm not a big fan of squib kicks. There's too many things. There's too many times that you see that squib kick get picked up, and it's at the 40, and now you get him a great field position with plenty of time. I know the conventional wisdom is you squib it, it's tough to pick up. Well, there's a lot of things that can happen between the ball touching the kicker's foot and getting down the field in 15 and 20. There's a whole lot of people, and it takes a lot to get down there. And I would have rather just seen them boom it deep, trust your coverage to cover it and then go from there. I just think that giving Calgary that kind of field position, I just think was way too much of taking a chance.
Yeah, I could have seen it more if they were up a touchdown, but only up a field goal. I mean, hell, the first play Mitchell throws to Jordan, if he catches it, they're in field goal position immediately.
Yeah.
Right.
And when the over-under on mybookie.ag is 52 and it's at 51, you got Oz over there pissing his pants.
Well, on that level, yeah, I was sweating it. I mean, yeah, I had some money on the Calgary to win straight up from a few weeks ago, to win the Grey Cup from a few weeks ago. But I thought this was funny, Brian's reaction to the squib kick, because I swear to God, about 8 nanoseconds after this thing happened, I got a text from Mr. Mike Goodpaster saying, I hate squib kicks.
Brian got the same
I did
text.
too.
Oh, Brian
I did too.
Okay, there you go.
That's one of my pet peeves in football. If you're up by one score, why do you want to give them an extra 20-yard head start? And I mean,
especially 50 seconds.
And I know Fitch is a great return man, but I also know we can kick it away from him also.
Uh-huh.
Or, I mean, pop it up in the air down to about the 30 and go cover it. But, I mean, give him the ball at the 40, 45-yard line. It was just, to me, it was insane. And I thought it was going to cost him the game or at least put him in overtime when it happened.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was maybe, at the time, I was wondering if that was maybe overthinking it a little bit. I mean, Finch was coming into the game on a nice wave of publicity, being named, the special teams player of the year in the CFL this year. And he did have a great game, actually, both running the ball, catching the ball, and on special teams. But I thought they were overthinking that a little bit.
Well, and he did have the fumble that Singleton recovered with about 8.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But We're going to get off here. We are going to go check out a message from our main sponsor, mybookie.ag. We'll be back after this message.
Hey, Puckheads, this is Patrick.
And Jason.
From the Puck Guys podcast at the Grueling Truth Network, and we're here with one simple message. If you're watching the games, it's time to start making money.
The Grueling Truth has partnered with mybookie.ag, an industry-leading sportsbook website who reminds you that where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on. And that's why the Grueling Truth urges you to check out mybookie.ag.
In addition to the usual thousands of odds, money lines, proposition bets, and futures offered on mybookie.ag daily, they also have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. So join now, and mybookie.ag will give you a 50% bonus on your first deposit of up to $3,000 in extra cash. Just enter the promo code TGT50. That's TGT50 to take advantage of this offer. Where do they got to go, Jay?
That is a smart-looking question, Pat. They need to go to visitmybookie.ag, courtesy of the Grueling Truth Network, and enjoy your winning today.
Mybookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid.
All right, guys, we're back on the CFL postgame show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Of course, brought to you by mybookie.ag. I'm Mike Goodpaster. I'm the host for the show. My co-hosts are Brian Schmidt, Oz Davis. So let's look at this game, the final couple minutes. Ricky Ray comes on the field, just like he did against Saskatchewan, goes right down the field, sets up Hyra Wahoo for the game-winning field goal, or what ended up being the game-winning field goal. But when you look at Ricky Ray, I mean, he's got to be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in CFL history now, doesn't he, Brian?
Yeah, he absolutely does. And what a great job coming, when he comes on the field in that situation. I mean, it's almost like one of those where you just look at a guy and go, you almost feel like he's going to will them to win. And you really kind of felt that in that situation. You almost just felt that they were going to get a field goal out of that just because, he has been a guy that has done this so much through his career, and really a great opportunity for him to be pretty much healthy the whole year and to see him do what he's done all year. It just really shows us how great a quarterback he is.
Yeah, and the other thing I thought that really helped him, especially on the last drive, Oz, was the offensive line in the second half played a lot better than they did in the first half.
Yeah.
And then you got S.G. Green and DeVere Posey both making huge plays on that final drive.
Yeah, Posey was great, but I'll tell you what. Here's what occurs to me is that we see this a lot lately in big games in professional football, and I suppose we always have, but, it's that last-minute drive by the old hand at quarterback. It's the Casey at the bat thing where you go, we can't lose if we have one possession and Joe Montana or Tom Brady or Ricky Ray is our quarterback. Now, the thing that occurred to me is, okay, when are we going to start saying that about Bo Levi-Mitchell, the guy with like an 850 winning percentage in the regular season? That's what occurred to me is here's a guy who seems to be a winner, who seems to be a team leader, who has this astounding record of not getting hurt, which is outstanding in itself, and just, records for accuracy and whatnot. And yet something happens in the big moment. We don't think of him like we think of Mitchell. We don't think of him as a big game quarterback. And I was just wondering when that might happen.
Well, in his defense, I mean, he had 49 seconds to go down there. And the thing
he
is,
did pretty well.
He took a shot to win the game. I mean, he gets the ball to 40. He made a couple really nice completions. So, Brian, do you have a problem with him taking a shot to win it at the end?
No, I don't. No, I think it was a great shot to take. I didn't have a problem with it at all.
Well, actually, if he throws that ball about 2 or 3 yards farther, it's a touchdown.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it at all. Look, you're not going to sit in that situation and go, "Oh, I shouldn't take the shot because we're playing for a field goal or whatever." As a competitor, as a player, you're going to take the shot because that That's winning a game right there, and I didn't have a problem with it at all. But I going back to something I said, why people don't think of him as a big game, as a big game quarterback. I don't know that I necessarily agree. I think he is a big game quarterback, but we've also seen in 2 straight Grey Cups where they've lost. So you have all this regular season stuff where he's done it, but then in the Grey Cup they've lost. Now, certainly I'm not pinning the losses on him, but at the same time, legends are born when they win championships. And I just don't think he's there yet. Now, that's not saying he won't be there, but I just don't know that I think people look at that and say, well, he's not, the last 2 Grey Cups, especially, he's not got them in the winner's circle. So I think that does make a difference.
All right, Oz, do you agree with the decision to go for the win?
I'm kind of up in the air about it. Hindsight is 2020. And, on the first long pass that wasn't complete, I was thinking, okay, that was a good call. On the second long pass that was complete, okay, good call. On the third pass, a little wide out, got like 8-10 yards. Okay, good play, closer to field goal position. But then, there's that play. And, of course, now I'm like, oh, I was against it. I'm not sure that I was 100% against it at the time, but you do wonder. I mean, I'm not a head coach, so I might be more conservative than, the Stampeders coach might be, but I don't know. I wasn't 100% good with it, I don't think.
All right, here's my opinion. All right, if I'm coaching a game and I've got a chance to win it, I'm going to take that chance because we may go to overtime, and I may never get one play to try to win the game.
Right. Although in the CFL now, the rules in the overtime are you get 2 chances, right? So
yeah, you get 2 chances, but what if you both score?
Right. Yeah.
And then you go to the third, and what I'm saying is, right there, you had a chance to win it. Would they have like 25, 30 seconds, something like that? 23 seconds? So my question is, the thing I doubt the most is this. When you look at that play, Brian, I'm thinking if he's going to go for the win, he's going to throw the fade to the back corner of the end zone. My thought is, my thought is, I would think with the coverage they were against, that the middle of the field would have been the place to go.
Yeah, I think depending upon what plays were called or what they were doing, but again, and we kind of touched on this. Had he made the right throw, it's a touchdown. He left it a little bit short. But I don't fault. Maybe there may have been something over the middle. I don't know, but I don't fault going and taking that chance.
I don't fault it either.
Mike, if he goes over the middle in the CFL, right? You get the first down, so the clock is going to stop. But all you're doing is setting up a closer field goal anyway, right?
No, it's because I'm talking about this. The way the coverage looked. It looked like they were doubling at the top. So I'm thinking maybe you get single coverage inside, and if you run a slant or a post to the inside, you may end up in the end zone one-on-one with an easier throw.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Because my thoughts are this, Brian. That's the back corner throw is not that hard of a throw for somebody like Mitchell, but in the weather conditions it was in, I think it's a lot harder throw.
Oh, absolutely, it is. But again, if ideally, maybe he may have been able to go through the middle, but ideally, if he throws that thing a little bit better, it's touchdown. Now, again, I don't know what was open over the middle. I don't claim to know that anything was open over the middle because they don't give you like the all 24 view like they do in the NFL, some of them. So I can't say this for sure. I'm just saying I think that's a hard throw for a quarterback to make
with the weather conditions that were there, because that throw,
Right.
you
Oh,
cannot
absolutely.
throw short. And I'm thinking this, if it's a dry ball and a dry field, he hits that throw 9 out of 10 times and wins the game.
Absolutely. Which again is why you, because you're used to making that throw, weather conditions be damned, you're going to make your throw, and that's what he did. You can isolate it and look at it. You can always find a way to say, yeah, it was
Right.
good play, bad play, but at the end of the day, I mean, I think it was the right thing to go after it. It didn't execute it, and that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was the right thing to go after also. All right, so let's talk about this. I think this has been a great CFL season. And the thing that really strikes me is if you look at the first 6-7 weeks of the season, if you remember, we would bring up Saskatchewan and Hamilton, Oz, and we would make fun of them, how the only games they would win would be against each other, how Hamilton might be able to go 0-18, which no team's ever done.
Yeah.
Montreal, after 6 weeks, we were talking about with Darren Durant like they were a contender, and they didn't win a game again. I mean, this season had a little bit of everything. Almost everybody at one point was a contender, and almost everybody at another point was in a tailspin.
Yeah, I would say that Hamilton was never really a contender, right? Because they won all their games at the end when they were already shamed. And
Yeah, but the point is they went from being maybe one of the worst teams in CFL history to getting June Jones, and all of a sudden they're beating good teams, and they're almost beating Calgary.
Well, the secret I'm learning, especially looking at something like the NBA, the secret is to a league's success is leave them wanting more. Right? Already, I can't be the only one, but already CFL fans can't wait to see what's going to happen in the off season. They can't wait to see how Saskatchewan, for example, is going to look next year. They can't wait to see what Ottawa and Hamilton are going to look like next year. And in case anyone hasn't noticed, with all this complaining about how we've got to remake the divisions, about how we've got to redo the playoffs and everything, the East has won the last 2 Grey Cups, boys and girls.
Yeah.
So let's remember that no lead is safe. Remember this? This was the slogan a couple of years ago at the CFL, and it's still true. No lead is safe, and no lead in the division is safe. No lead in the playoffs is safe, and definitely no lead in the cup is safe. Scintillating Grey Cup tops a scintillating year. Completely unpredictable. Really nice. Really
All right. Brian, we're going to go ahead and wrap this show up. Do you have any final words, or do you want to ask Oz a question? Because that's never happened before.
About what?
No, I don't want to ask Oz a question. I'm saving it. But no, it was a great season. It was a great Grey Cup. So I'll tell you, I'm with Oz. I'm definitely going to be paying attention to what's going on in the off season, because I think potentially next year the CFL season could be even better than this year. I really think there's some potential to really have a great season next year.
All right, Oz, any final comments or questions?
Actually, I did have one question for you guys, because there was a very
I could have guessed this.
Well, there was a very interesting point brought up at halftime, and that was by one of the TSN guys, and that was this. I think he must have been a dude coming out of the coaching realm, because he said this. He said, I don't like snowy, windy games, and here's why. Because you have to throw out so much of the preparation you did during the week, and so much of the precision and the exactitude that you try and apply gets thrown out the window. Now, the other day, like earlier this week in a preview for this game, you guys were like, yeah, I want weather. I want this insane game because that's football. So what do you think about these comments? I mean, doesn't the weather take out your game plan, Mike?
Well, I can tell you this. As a fan, I freaking love snow. I love mud. I love rain. As a coach, I will sit there all week. If I'm coaching an outdoor football team, I mean, right now I coach my son's high school team, But what I do is I sit there and I pray that there is no bad weather.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's
absolutely.
Because you can have a better team than somebody else. I'll give an example. Last year, our first game 2 years ago, we played a team from Indianapolis that ended up being ranked top 20 in the country, high school wise, and we played them. And the weather was really bad. I mean, it's in a downpour the whole time, and they fumbled the ball 7 times. We actually had the lead 14-6 going into the fourth quarter. They ended up beating us 28-14 because, damn it, they started holding on to the ball. But the point was, if we would have played them in good weather, they would have literally beat us. They'd have beat us 50-0. But with the weather being bad, weather is the great equalizer in football, I think, Brian.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I'm the same way when I was coaching outdoor, especially with the offense that I ran and things that I did. I mean, I'd look at the weather and I'd see, wind and rain, and I mean, I'd start looking for, witch doctors to try to figure out a way to make this thing not happen, because, but from a fan perspective, I mean, it does change. It's fun to watch, and from a team perspective, it does change the game because it can neutralize teams in what they can do, and sometimes it can help teams, and that maybe aren't as talented. It can give them opportunity. So it is definitely a great equalizer, and to me, it's just fun. Football was built on weather. Good weather, bad weather, whatever. The elements are a part of the game. It's in any sport, outdoors, baseball. I mean, the wind. You can have the wind blowing in one day, and you're going to get a pitcher's duel. You have the wind blowing out the next day, and you can have your best pitchers on the mound at the 11-10. So
but as they always say, football is the only sport played in all weather, right?
Exactly, and I think that's where football makes it a great game, because you can play with you. The weather becomes a factor, and it also means as a coach, you may have to go to plan B on the game plan. That's all part of the strategy and all part of football. I've been in bad weather games where, we were, I know the one bad weather game years ago. I mean, we were a team that threw the ball 50 times a game, and, we're in a torrential downpour and wind. Well, guess what? We threw it 35 times, but it changed what we had to do. We had to have a plan B, and that's what we did. So that's football.
Well, I can tell you this, though. The one, and I think I can speak for you guys, too, the one bad thing about the cold weather in Canada in the snow is the fact that Shania Twain was wearing too many clothes.
Oh, here we go. Here's another guy talking about
I would agree with that, except whoever did her hair was not.
I didn't like the curls. I would never do my hair in curls like that. Would you, Oz?
Oh, me personally, no. I'm not a curls guy.
You sure in 1987 you didn't have one of those perms?
Let's see. 87. I in high school I did have the feathered haircut.
You had the feathered haircut?
Yeah, because it was cool. But no, after that, nah. Come on. In college, I was the ponytail guy, man. I didn't have a hairstyle.
Ponytail?
Yeah,
you're the guy we used to beat the hell out of for fun.
Right.
Okay. Did you ever get a swirly?
Unless I supplied you all with weed, and then, you'd leave me alone.
Unlike you, I have never done that. I've never partaken in no wacky tobacco.
I didn't inhale.
No, that's not. You couldn't have supplied me with that. It wouldn't have done you any good. I'd have still gave you a swirly.
Well, thank God we met in better circumstances, Mark.
Well, I'll tell you, someday when we meet, Oz, I'm going to give you a swirly.
Good, keep me away. Keep me away from Indy.
All right, guys, I want to thank everybody that listened to our CFL Weekly show this year. Robert couldn't make it tonight because his flight was getting in late. I expect we will all be back next year. I'm sure you can look forward to another post-game wrap-up on the Rouge, White, and Blue with Joe Pritchard and Oz Davis, so make sure you check that out. Tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern, we will have a live college football show with myself, Brian Schmidt, of course, and Bill Searcy from the Alabama Crimson Tide, so you bet we're going to have a little bit of fun with Bill this week. Tuesday night at 10:30 Eastern, Brian, Oz, myself, Alex Golden, and Matt Andrews-Cabbage will be back for the NFL Pick'em Show live on the gruelingtruth.net. Also, Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, I'll be interviewing the real Rocky, former heavyweight contender Chuck Wepner. Tomorrow night at 7, we have a live interview with former featherweight champion of the world, Clarence Bones Adams. Alex Ramos at 3 o'clock, or 2 or 3 o'clock on Tuesday, former middleweight contender. And we got a bunch more, too, but I'm getting tired of talking, and I'm sure Brian wants to go watch these Steelers hopefully lose to the Packers. What's the score, Brian?
Pittsburgh just scored. It's up 28-21.
Pittsburgh's up 28-21?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, enjoy that, because next Monday night, the Cincinnati Bengals are kicking that ass. All right, guys, remember, you can hear all of our shows on iHeart, iTunes, TuneIn, Google Music, wherever you hear sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Brian Schmidt, Oz Davis, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.